Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo here live. We are ready to rock and roll. This is Baseball Outside the Box, the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo, but we also bring you some incredible stories of inspirational people. And we've got one, probably the best one we've ever had on any of our shows. This is going to be an incredible show, and I can't wait to get started. But before we get started, don't forget, do us a favor, follow us on Twitter, Baseball Out. Do us a favor, also share the show in the U.S. and around the world. You guys are fantastic for joining all the time. We've got some great listeners all over the world, and we really appreciate it. And all we ask, since it's free, just share it. Everybody gets better by doing that, and we bring in more people, develop the show, grow the show, and also make people hopefully smarter, more intelligent when it comes to the development of the game. But today we're talking inspiration. Let me tell you, think about this. Close your eyes for a day and tell me how that feels. Tell me what you're going to feel like. Tell me how what you're going to do all day. We're going through some tough times right now. Everybody is, but you know what? Sometimes we also need some inspiration. And the next young man from Illinois, he's an Illinoisan like I am, Bryce Weiler. He is an outstanding individual. He's the founder of or co-founder of the Beautiful Lives Project. He's going to tell us about that. He is a blind broadcaster. Okay. Let me repeat that again one more time. He is a blind broadcaster. Yeah. When I first heard about it, I was like, wow, this is incredible. How can you possibly do that? I'm sure he's been asked that 1,000 times. Well, we're going to do it 1,001. He's also helps the Baltimore Orioles. He is, he's the disability consultant. And I want to say, Orioles were the first team in sports to wear Braille on their uniforms to honor blind people. I think that was incredible. And we want to spread this story because guess what? He does this for a living. He broadcasts basketball, baseball, all kinds of other different sports. He's going to tell us about it. But let's not waste any time. Let's go with it right now. Let me welcome Bryce Weiler. Bryce, how you doing, my friend?
Hi, Pete. That's been my favorite introduction so far. Thank you so much for having me on.
And I bet you say that to everybody.
I've actually not said that yet, and I've been doing these for 3 months.
You know what? And I know that because I've listened to a few of your shows, obviously, and a broadcast, and they've been incredible. I got to tell you, during these times, I get down, man. I mean, I'm in the house all the time now. I have a routine. I ride the bike. I do my exercise. I try to do my work. I haven't made any money, and I'm not gonna for a while. And I'm always trying to stay positive. It's not easy. And then all of a sudden, everything hits with, the gentleman who unfortunately, was murdered. And now we've got issues all over the U.S. and we're trying to, talk through all these issues. And here you come. I would think, I'm thinking to myself, how do you deal with life in a situation that you're in? And that's where I want to start. Talk about, I know you were born blind. Talk about how that kind of, your life developed and what inspired you to become a broadcaster.
I was born 4 months premature with an eye condition called retinopathy of prematurity. And that happened when I was in the hospital, maybe because of too much light, maybe because of too much oxygen, but it caused the retinas in my eyes to detach. And I had many eye surgeries when I was younger, where maybe at some point I will be able to have vision. I had a cornea transplant done when I was younger, various other eye surgeries. And I really give a lot of credit to my parents and my family for driving me to Detroit, Michigan for eye surgeries, which is about a 7-hour drive from our house, or going to St. Louis for the various eye checkups that I had at a special hospital in St. Louis for people who are blind. Growing up, I began listening to sports on the radio because when I listen on television then, and when I listen on television now, I still don't know what's happening in the games because the television broadcasters do not really paint pictures because the people who are listening or / watching, I should say, on the television can see the pictures happening of the game happening on the court or the field. So I started listening to games when I was younger. Mike Shannon of the St. Louis Cardinals Pat Hughes of the Chicago Cubs. I've been fortunate enough to become good friends with both those individuals. On the college side of things, Brian Barnhart with the Fighting Illini, Don Fisher of the Indiana Hoosiers, and when I got XM Radio in 2003 as a holiday Christmas present, Dave Innett of the Northwestern Wildcats with football and basketball. So those were broadcasters that were influential to me. And then when I was in college, at the invitation of the former University of Evansville head basketball coach, Marty Simmons, who gave me the opportunity to sit on his Aces basketball bench, I learned how to be a blind radio analyst and radio broadcaster thanks to my good friend Tom Benson, who worked as a part of the Evansville Aces staff. And Tom taught me how to properly analyze games on the radio, to study the style of the play-by-play broadcaster who I might be commentating with, to study facts on both teams who were playing in the game that I'm commentating, to read up on the players and coaches, and to listen to both teams' previous couple of games to learn the playing style of the teams.
You know, Bryce, I'm gonna have you take us through baseball in a minute here, but before we do, I want to take us through the events of what's been going on here the last few months. One starting with the coronavirus. You know, everybody's been in, obviously, and that's been tough on everybody. And finally, we're starting to open up a little bit. How did you deal with all this? You know, with the coronavirus, and what's your, I guess, you know, talk to people out there on a daily basis, because some people are still in. How do you stay motivated to get excited about getting things going again?
With the virus, it really wasn't any different for me because I'm typically at home every day in the house. I've been at home basically a lot of the time since 2016. If I'm not traveling for an event with my consulting work with professional sports teams or with the nonprofit that I am the co-founder of, I'm typically at home. So being at home, that's been nothing different for me. And since I cannot do events and programs right now very well, or not as many as I normally do, I decided to set up radio and podcast interviews across the country. So that's got me connecting with a wide range of people on my LinkedIn, and people can connect with me there. I've contacted people on Twitter. I have read so many lists of the best baseball podcasts, softball podcasts, basketball, football, whatever sport. And Pete, your podcast was ranked 21st on a website of the top 25 baseball podcasts. Fortunately, it was ranked in the top 25. I think it should have been higher in the ranking, honestly. I would say top 5 after listening to some. But fortunately, it was ranked in the top 25 because that's how I discovered you.
Huh. You know, interesting. Yeah, and I appreciate that. I'm working like anybody else, just like you, and you've really been working hard. I could tell by reaching out to a lot of people. And then the same, you know, we all trying to reach out to people and trying to get our shows at the top of the list so we can, you know, and in my opinion, help more people if possible. But you know, I'd like to know what's your message to other people who, you know, like you and I, because even I'm at home too. I've been at home. I do a lot of work out of my house, so this is kind of a normal routine for me. It doesn't affect me as much, except on the financial end. But you know, what about to the people that are used to going to work every day, the kids that are used to going to school every day? What's your message to them to try to stick through this thing and try to, you know, make sure that they do the right thing, and then hopefully things will open up even more as they are a little bit now?
Just because someone cannot go to work or school or do their daily activities, they can always find something else they can do. They can contact new people. They can talk to friends they haven't talked to in a while. They can try new things they've always wanted to do, like exercising more, maybe learning how to sew, learning how to play musical instruments. So just trying new things and giving you something to be excited about every day, and super excited that it's a new day. Sunday goes into Monday and Monday goes into Tuesday, and just finding a plethora of things that can keep you excited for every day of the week.
Love it, Bryce. Love it, love it, love it. And then the next part I want to get to, and then we're going to get into everything that you've been doing, which is fantastic. I want everybody in the U.S. and around the world to know about this. You know, the sad story of George Floyd and the murder that occurred, and now the outrage. And, you know, this has been something that's been going on for a long time. But you, and I don't know if you were directing, you know, on your Twitter exactly for this situation, but you had this great quote on there. And I'm going to read it because I think it was inspirational. It says, "I'm blind and I do not judge people based on their skin color. Everyone should respect people no matter their race, religion, or physical appearance. Judging people is only holding our world back. If people just close their eyes, kindness would be the only way to judge someone. And I thought that was fantastic. I just want you to talk about, how people should be reacting nowadays to what's been going on.
Well, that was something that I did type out on my iPhone, and it was stressful because I didn't want to have any spelling errors, and I listened to it about 10 or 12 times. I didn't think I had any spelling errors. It took me around 20 minutes to type all that out and listen to it, and that was only about 250 characters. So when I put something out on Twitter, it takes a lot of hard work and effort. So hopefully people will be willing to share the things that I put out and respond back to them, because it takes up a decent time portion of my day putting that out. But I just don't think people should judge anyone, no matter if they're black or white or red or whatever country they might be from, if they're from Mexico, if they're from Cuba. It isn't worth judging people just because someone's different than you. They might have different cultures or even different customs. You shouldn't judge them. You should accept everyone for who they are and for what they like to do and the values that they bring forth into the world. People often told me that I could not work in sports because I can't see. And when I was first applying for jobs, when I finished in college, I wouldn't tell people that I was blind, because you're not really supposed to do that, because people are just going to take you off of their job screening process. And that actually happened to me a few times. People would type my name into the internet and they'd email me or call me and say, "Oh, I didn't know you were blind, or that you commentated games as a blind sports broadcaster. That is really interesting." And then I would suddenly just disappear from their job screening process. So I decided that I was going to tell everyone that I was blind anytime I applied for a job or tried to become a consultant with a sports team to help them make dreams of people of all disabilities come true, or when I've worked with companies to help them as a hiring consultant to hire individuals of all disabilities for employment. I would speak about how being blind has helped me to overcome obstacles and challenges, and how I have taught myself how to work with people of every disabled group and the challenges that every group faces and how to overcome these challenges. No one really taught me any of this. I taught myself everything that I know about working with people of all disabled groups in the summer of 2016 when I had finished graduate school, because I was not finding a job successfully. So going back to what we first started talking about, just don't ever judge anyone, and always be willing to talk to a new friend and a new person, because that's how you make new friends, is talking to new people.
Well said. And, I got to say, from my standpoint, racism or discrimination comes in all colors, comes in all situations, and you would never think that being handicapped, that somebody would hold that against somebody, but it happens. That's real life, unfortunately. And I just hope that we can all come around and make these things better, because, here's a great example of Bryce Weiler. He's announcing, I've tried announcing baseball games for fun, like at a high school. And I'm terrible at it. You do this extremely well. You've done it well. And it's amazing. And because of the fact that the number one question is probably asked 1,000 times to you, take us to a baseball game. Okay. How are you explaining to people what is going on the field when you can't see?
I do not do play-by-play when I do the baseball broadcast. So I work alongside the play-by-play broadcaster as the second radio broadcaster in the booth. And I read facts on the players and coaches and try to talk to both teams' coaches before the game. One of the most important things for me, though, whether I'm doing a college baseball game, a minor league baseball game, or a high school baseball game, is that there's a good crowd microphone, so I can hear the sound of the ball hitting the catcher's glove, or the ball being fouled off, or the umpire calling that pitch a ball or a strike. And when I hear those things, if I'm talking about how the previous batter shouldn't have swung at the first pitch because now there's 2 outs in the top of the third after 2 pitches, I can call whatever that pitch was. If I hear the umpire call it a strike, I can say, well, the count is now 0-1. And the third batter to the plate, the center fielder, took the first pitch. He's going to make pitcher work a little bit, hopefully, here in the top of the third, because so far the pitcher has completed 2/3 of the top of the third, 2 outs, top of the third, and only 3 pitches have been thrown from his left hand.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And as you know, our show is called Baseball Outside the Box, and I called it that just to think different. I always love that people think different, how they do things. And I'm going to ask a crazy question, and I guess maybe an outside the box question. Is there an advantage to being blind in calling games?
Since I have listened to so many games on the radio, I would say that I probably listen to more games on the radio than most broadcasters anywhere. So that can be really useful when I'm commentating with other radio broadcasters, because I can study their style. If they talk a lot, I'm not going to talk as much, so that the fans can hear the sound of the crowd or the ball hitting the bat or the glove. If the play-by-play broadcaster lacks sometimes during his or her commentary, I know that I'm going to have to fill in more. I'm going to have to track things like first pitch strikes and things such as that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. The other part of all this is, as a broadcaster, as you said, you talk to players, you talk to coaches, you listen to your partner. I think that's probably, like you said, that's probably critical in what you're doing. What about the fans? How do you play off the fans a little bit?
I don't normally pay attention to the fans. I mean, they're there and they're interesting. Sometimes if someone says something that's interesting, I may say that, but mostly I just listen for the umpire, or if I hear the ball hit the bat and then I hear some music or some other sound effects being played through the stadium PA system, then I know that the ball has been fouled off. So I don't normally listen to the fans, because one can never tell what the fans are saying. Unless they say something funny that I can hear really well, then I'll speak about that.
Absolutely. Now with the Orioles, you've done a lot of work with the Orioles. And I'll be honest with you, here I am, a baseball person, and I was not aware of the Orioles being the first team to wear Braille. That's, boy, I feel bad about that one. I missed that big time. Tell us what you do as a consultant. You develop programs for disabled individuals to build careers in sports or other areas?
I have been the disability consultant for the Orioles since 2016, and I have helped Baltimore become the first team in sports to wear Braille on their jerseys to honor people who are blind, like we talked about before. That happened during a home game against the Toronto Blue Jays in September of 2018. There were 150 fans at that game who were either visually impaired or blind, and I ensured that the food menus where those fans would be sitting at the food stands were put in Braille, so those fans could read what there was to eat or drink. I actually did that myself. I brailled them out by hand on my Perkins Braille typewriter. I brailled 2 sets, one that used all of the 126 contractions in the Braille code that can make words shorter to read, and then one that actually did not have any contractions. So that in case people didn't know the entire 126 contractions in the Braille code, they could still read what there was to eat or drink. So that was a part of that night. I also worked with the ushers to ensure they could properly guide people who are blind. I ensured that the individuals who were blind, when they brought their guide dogs, that the guide dogs had a good place to use the bathroom. So that was one big day. I've also ensured that Camden Yards, as well as the Orioles Spring Training Stadium, Ed Smith Stadium, is accessible for people who are blind, but also individuals of all disabilities, because every disability is important. No matter if someone has autism, they're deaf, they're in a wheelchair, they're blind, whatever the case might be, I have done that as well for Baltimore. And then last year, before 2 Orioles home games in September 2019, during the final homestand of the season, we gave individuals of all disabilities the opportunity to play on the field with the Orioles players and coaches at Camden Yards. One of the events, we had Paul Fry, one of their pitchers, out there, along with my friend, the Orioles catching coach, Tim Cossins, who made an appearance on the field at Camden Yards while that event was going on.
Hey, Bryce, you've done several sports. I'm going to put you on the spot. What sport you love to call the most? and why?
I really like commentating soccer the most because soccer is super
Oh,
challenging for me, and
oh, Bryce.
I do not understand the offsides call. But I mean, that's the most challenging for me. So obviously, I really like a challenge, but I definitely enjoy how I can tell stories in baseball and softball about the lives of the players and the coaches. And I especially enjoy commentating women's sports such as softball, women's soccer, and women's basketball, because those sports and the players and the coaches don't get the coverage they deserve because people don't often want to cover women's sports. But those athletes and coaches try just as hard as the men playing sports such as baseball and men's basketball and men's soccer. So really enjoy commentating women's sports, and I really like the challenge of a soccer match commentary.
You know, I groaned there for a minute, only be just for fun, because I thought, oh, he's got to say baseball. You know, I'm a baseball guy, but I was just teasing. And
I know.
and you know what I love about what you said is the word challenge. You know, nobody's been challenged more than you have in what you do. And you even said in a tweet, sometimes we're tested not to show our weaknesses, but to discover our strengths. I'm assuming we can do that through challenging ourselves and things that, you know, maybe we're not real good at yet.
One cannot get past his or her weaknesses by not knowing what their strengths are, because you have to use your strengths to make it through your weaknesses. And once you know the weaknesses that you have in your life, you can use those weaknesses and over time turn them into strengths. It's just like exercising and walking on the treadmill. I walk on the treadmill around 4 miles a day, 6 days a week. And I didn't start out walking 4 miles. It started out about 3.2 miles for an hour. And now I'm up to around 4 miles an hour for an hour, which is 4 miles, 6 to 7 days a week, normally 6 days a week.
You know, you got me beat. So now that's a challenge, I think, on the radio. So I'm going to have to pick up my pace here a little bit. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm always thinking, you know, I challenge myself, I guess, because, you know, that's the reason I do the podcast also, because it's something I haven't done very often. And, you know, I want to get better at it all the time. So, you know, unfortunately I make mistakes, and it's one way to understand how to get better all the time. Tell us about some of the things that it's interesting to hear, some of the things, maybe some mistakes that you made along your broadcasting career, that can also help other broadcasters, other young people that want to get in the broadcasting.
Well, when I first started commentating, the first ever game that I broadcast, I didn't really stay silent at the end. It was a college basketball game in Evansville, Indiana in February 2011. And thankfully the play-by-play broadcaster didn't really get mad at me for that. I don't really have as many broadcasting mistakes. I am happy that I studied other things in college other than just sports broadcasting, because I really knew that I could never find a job working in sports broadcasting because I cannot see to do play-by-play broadcasting. And I wish people would have been more honest with me about that as I went through college, but that was something that I figured out on my own. And I have commentated over 150 games, as we talked about before, but I have never got paid for a single game that I've done.
Well,
So
but I got a feeling that might be changing soon. If you keep doing what you're doing, you know, and I mean, as a commentator, I mean, in baseball, you know, it's a color commentator. There's got to be advice that you have. Let's say I wanted to become a broadcaster and I want to broadcast games, and I did some for the Schaumburg Flyers, an independent professional team here when I was with
of the Frontier League.
In a Frontier League now, but at that time, the Northern League. In 1999 it started, and I was one of the coaches, the player development directors, and also you know, I would jump on on radio and do the color aspect of it. You know, I have no idea what I was doing, but you know, I sure could have used some advice prior to going on there instead of just talking baseball, because there's times where I know I was listening to an interview of yours, and one of the commentators said, well, yeah, I hear other people that they kind of step on that other person's toes all the time, or on his voice. So that's why I guess what I was getting at is any advice you have for anybody out there that's going to commentate.
Commentate any sport that you're given, even if you don't really like it or understand it and it's not your favorite, like baseball or softball might be. If you get that soccer match, which is a challenge for me, you should go commentate that and teach yourself about soccer. Also, try to listen to games on the radio, whether that's college games, high school games, professional games. Listen to all those things, because most broadcasters now, they just listen to or watch games on television, and their true goal isn't to be in radio, but they want to be on ESPN or some television medium such as that.
You know, Bryce, I've been in the game, in baseball game, about 37 years. I'm still learning constantly. That's why I love asking questions, because I always tell everybody, you know, tell me how I can get better. But along the way, you know, I didn't stay in baseball 37 years on my own. I had a lot of people helping me, some great mentors. What mentors did you have? I know Marty Simmons at Evansville, you know, was big because he allowed you to be on the bench. I want you to talk about that. But talk about some mentors that helped you along the way, that encouraged you, that were positive, you know, that helped you get into what you're doing.
Marty Simmons from Evansville, Tom Benson, the broadcaster there at Evansville, taught me how to commentate games on the radio. Mike Capps, who's the AAA voice of the Round Rock Express, he's also listening to me commentate, but he's also working with me to get more teams across the country to help people of all disabilities to live their dreams. Pat O'Connor, the minor league baseball president, who has helped me to expand the network and the people that I'm friends with. And I've done some work with Pat before about working to get minor league baseball teams to hire people of all disabilities, and all the staff from Baltimore, from their owners, Peter and John, to Greg Bader, to everyone else there who's given me these opportunities to live my dreams and to give back to others. Also, when I was in college at Evansville, I had many students who helped me get my food in the cafeteria and went and shot free throws with me in Evansville's practice gym. If it wasn't for those students, I wouldn't have been able to make it through 4 years of college at Evansville, because they really helped me to get through all the things that I needed so I could be successful throughout my life. And you like hearing about baseball people. The first ever baseball manager I became friends with was Clint Hurdle, the former Pittsburgh Pirates manager.
Yeah.
And he's been someone who's been really influential to me. He has a daughter, Madison, who has special needs. So Clint has always enjoyed letting Madison listen to my radio broadcasts. And he's told her, you can do anything that you set your mind to achieving in your life, because Bryce can commentate games on the radio and he can't see what's happening. So Clint Hurdle's been influential to my life, and Dusty Baker as well. Really a good manager who's had to overcome obstacles and challenges. And I was happy that the Houston Astros gave him another shot to be a Major League Baseball manager, because Mr. Baker, he's a good manager, but most importantly than how many games he can win on the field, he really molds his players into being high-quality individuals and high-quality human beings.
Absolutely. Players love him. And you mentioned Clint Hurdle, man, my idol. We just did a show 2 weeks ago with Clint Hurdle. What a fantastic job he did. So selfless. And here's a guy that, don't forget, he went through a real tough time through his career, through his life. And we talked about that on the show. Bryce, you know, you talk about your college friends, you know, all these kids helping you throughout your career. And I thought that was nice that you brought that up, because, you know, it's easy to mention the Hurdles, the Pat Hughes from Chicago, who I know, these are all great people, but, you know, it's easier a lot of times for some of them to give advice and to help people. But when you see college kids doing that, that's when you know we're going in the right direction, with young people that are going to grow up to be very good people because they care about others. And that's really what sports is about too. You know, if you're going to have a good team, you got to care about your teammate. All these people that, you know, that were mentors or gave you advice, did any of them say, hey, Bryce, you're doing a great job, but here's what I think can help you get even better? Did anybody give you that type of advice? And if they didn't, we'll go on.
Mainly with the broadcasters, maybe Tom Benson and Mike Capps. Tom would always tell me to come up with my own thoughts and to not say what the play-by-play broadcaster was saying so much, because I would do that a lot whenever I was first starting out commentating. So I overcame that. And then, I mean, there's only so much I can do when I am talking about a sporting event that I can't see, because I can't see if someone's putting too much weight on their back foot, or if they're not properly setting themselves to make that throw from shortstop to first. or if they're double clutching when they throw it from third to first. So there's only so many things I can really do without being able to see the game. So I suppose they would have had more extensive comments if I could
Hmm.
have seen what was going on.
No, but that's understandable. And, that's a great point, because if you were saying similar things that they were saying, that's great advice. And that's no different than what I've done. And I want to see if you've done this, and I hated it at the beginning. I listened to every one of my shows, every time I'm done or during the week. And I hated listening to my voice, and I hated listening to, how I did things. And I still do in some ways. I cringe a little bit. Did you go back and listen to yourself once in a while?
I did listen to games that I'd commentated, or things I'd done, whether it's speaking to groups, singing the national anthem before sporting events. I still listen to the first time I ever sang the national anthem before a sporting event at a Evansville Butler basketball game at Hinkle Fieldhouse in 2010 that Evansville actually ended up winning. My friend Brad Stevens was coaching Butler at that point in time. He's now the Boston Celtics head coach. And even though it was the first time that I sang the national anthem, it still wasn't very good. And it always bothers me. And that's actually the only video clip I have of me singing on my computer, because I always listen to it and I say, just don't do as bad as that. And that time wasn't bad, but I've just done it so much now that I know I can do better.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Let's get to the heart of the matter. Because this is what I want people to know. Obviously people have learned about you right now through everything we just talked about. And, I personally, folks, just so you know, I've never met Bryce. This is the first time. We emailed back and forth. He's the one that originally contacted me, and I thanked him for it, because I'm a better person for having Bryce on the show, and by learning from him. And I want to talk about, because I know talk about, you speak around the country, talk about the groups you speak about, and then we're going to get into the Beautiful Lives Project.
I speak to schools or companies or sports teams about overcoming obstacles and challenges. When I speak to companies, I speak about the importance of hiring individuals of all disabilities. And that's something I can help any companies do who might be listening, whether that's a sports team, a grocery store, whatever company. So I talk about that. I also talk about how it's important to give people opportunities, whether it's Baltimore staff, Peter and John and Greg Bader giving me the opportunities, or Anthony Icavone, the owner of the New Britain Bees baseball team, giving me the opportunity to come out to New Britain to commentate New Britain Bees games on the radio as a blind broadcaster. But more important than that, Anthony gave me the opportunity to be the co-founder of the Beautiful Lives Project, where we're able to change the lives of individuals of all disabilities across the country in a wide range of events and programs and things such as sports, where they can play on the field with baseball teams, softball teams, soccer teams. They can play on the court with basketball teams. They can take part in events with football teams. They can do programs in music, programs in art, programs in ballet, cheerleading, and dance. So I speak about all these opportunities and the people who helped me and how they all come together as a cohesive group, and how many times the media wants me to talk about Clint Hartle or Brad Stevens, but then I talk about all the students that helped me get my tray in the cafeteria, or who would guide me when it was snowing outside so I wouldn't have to worry about slipping or getting lost and getting my hands frozen off. Because someone doesn't have to be famous, and they don't have to have a Wikipedia page to have an impact on another person's life.
Well said. And folks, we will have all of Bryce's information, his Twitter, Bryce Weiler. We'll spell it out so that way you have that. Also his email, bryce@beautifullives.org. His phone number, 812-899-5673, and the website, beautifullives.org. But we're going to have all that written out for you, and we're going to send it out to all our listeners by email also. We want everybody to know about Bryce. Bryce, co-founder, Beautiful Lives Project. Let's get right into that. Talk about why you co-founded this and what it's all about, because the website's beautiful, but there's a lot of things going on.
I was really grateful that Anthony Icavone gave me that opportunity to be the co-founder. And we have chapter presidents all across the country who give individuals of all disabilities opportunities to live their dreams in the categories that I talked about a couple minutes ago, in sports and art, cheerleading, dance, nature, music. We have 5 categories, and we do those all across the country. We have chapter presidents in Los Angeles, Dallas, Hartford, Connecticut, Raleigh, North Carolina. We're always looking for more chapter presidents. So if there's anybody who wants to be a chapter president, they can email or call me about that. We can help get that going. We're always looking for people to donate through funding or through services or goods to help us set up more events and to break down barriers and to eradicate stereotypes of people of all disabilities. And it's important to have people to help us through investing in smiles, or that's through helping us with funding, hosting an event if they have a child or an adult of any disabled group who would like to participate in an event, or just volunteering at an event. There are so many ways people can invest in smiles. It doesn't always have to be through a financial contribution.
You know, Bryce, a lot of our listeners are baseball people, you know, baseball coaches, players, parents, executives. There's some baseball programs they can do also through the foundation, correct?
We can definitely set up programs where people of all disabilities can play on the field with a high school baseball team, a college baseball team, a professional baseball team, with a special all-star baseball team. Whatever people might want to do, I can set it up for them. Last year out in Cumming, Georgia, we had an event where people of all disabilities played on the field with some of the best high school AAU softball players in the country before one of their tournaments put on by Triple Crown Sports out in Cumming, Georgia. And there was a nice article written about that as well that Pete's going to include in the show notes from Dan Wolken of USA Today. And reading that article or typing my name into Google with Bryce Weiler, USA Today, and reading how Dan captured the softball players who were playing beat baseball, which is how blind people play baseball with wearing a blindfold, and how that changed the lives of the softball players and the individuals who were blind who came to the event, and how these groups became friends and they learned from each other. That was the hope of that article when I had first contacted Dan to write the article, because we really wanted to show how groups come together and bond and make long-lasting friendships no matter what the event or program is, whether it's playing on the field with a baseball team or performing with a cheerleading or a dance team. Dreams will happen and friendships will be made that will last forever.
Bryce, you know, here in Chicago, real close to my house and near Barrington, there is Willow Creek Church. They have an incredible disabilities program there. These young kids, they put on, you know, talent shows, plays. I mean, we're talking about, you know, just top-notch plays, some of the best in the world. And they have mentors. They have I don't know if you call them student ambassadors, but mentors who help them along the way. It's great to see young people get involved with people with disabilities, because, you know, it makes them grow as an individual. Talk about that.
It's important to have individuals who are young helping people of all disabled groups, because whether they're in college or high school, at some point, their parents and their grandparents, they're going to stop working and retire, and it's going to be up to those young people who are maybe 10 or 15 years down the line now, and they're having the opportunity to hire someone who's blind to work for their company, or someone with autism, or someone who's deaf, or someone who's in a wheelchair, and giving them those experiences when they're young and showing them how valuable it is to give everyone the opportunity to live their dreams, no matter their disability or any other differences that this person may have. That's so important, because there can't be a gap in the hiring of people of all disabilities. There's already enough struggles and challenges with that as we go throughout the world and the country as a whole, and there just can't be any more of that.
Absolutely. Can't agree more. And I got to tell you, I was listening to you and you talked about, I want people to know about this, because there was an app, BeMyEyes.com. It's an app to help blind people, because I wondered, you know, how you responded to my emails. I know that through technology nowadays, obviously there's a lot more ways to communicate with a computer. But, you know, when you're in a hotel room, as you described, and, you know, you've got a couple bottles and there's shampoo and there's something else, and you want to know what that is. You smell it, but you really can't smell what it is. How do you communicate this kind of stuff?
The app is called Be My Eyes, and anyone can download that on their phone, whether they have an iPhone or a Google phone or whatever the case might be, through the App Store or through wherever you can download apps. And how it works is someone who's blind can call on the Be My Eyes app, and someone who can see anywhere in this country or the world can answer their phone call. And through the back camera on the person who is blind's phone, the person who can see can guide them to read the food directions on boxes, help them pick out clothes for a job interview, or whatever the person who is blind needs to do. So it doesn't cost anything for anyone, and it's a great way to make new friends and to help people as well.
I'll tell you what, I want to encourage everybody to get that app. I'm going to do that as soon as I get off the air here, because I think that's a great way to help people. Just one other way, but there's so many ways you can do it. You know, folks, beautifullives.org. You got to go to the website. There's a way to donate. There's a way to be involved. I think this is a
As a
fantastic
newsletter sign up.
Yep. And matter of fact, Bryce, before we even got on the air, I joined that newsletter. So we're going to put that in our show notes also. And I want to commend you for continuing to work on this program and all the programs that you have, even with the Baltimore Orioles. But I want to also know, you know, Bryce Weiler's future. What's ahead for you? What are you looking towards? What are you thinking ahead, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to.
I'd like to get more Beautiful Lives project chapters across the country to help enhance the lives of people of all disabilities and to help them live their dreams. I'd also like to get more professional sports teams to give me the opportunity to be their consultant, or colleges as well across the country, and also companies to help me help them hire people of all disabilities. So hopefully between yourself, Pete, and all your friends who listen to these podcasts, they can work to convince teams or colleges or companies where they may know influential individuals, because sometimes people listen better when they hear it from a second source and they're not just hearing it from me.
Absolutely. And lastly, I love to end the show with this, and especially because, there's so many things that we can discuss, and there's things that I'm going to miss as a host, to ask you. Any last words for people out there with disabilities and also without disabilities? How to keep motivated and keep going forward. And if they have a goal, stay with it. Don't let the little things bother you, and don't let, even big things bother you, because as you said, Clint Hurdle said it, when he talked to his daughter, hey, Bryce is announcing games and he can't see. So any last minute advice?
If someone has a disability, just try to do the best you can to overcome the obstacles and challenges, and don't put yourself with the people who don't think that you cannot do things. Surround yourself with the people who think you can live your dreams and who want to help you make those dreams be successful. Hopefully that's your family, your friends, people you may connect with on LinkedIn or Twitter. Surround yourself with those people. And for individuals who do not have any challenges or any disabilities in their life, try to always help people who may be blind or deaf or having autism to live the best life possible and to help them be successful, and really realize that yes, everyone has something different or some challenge in their life, but there's no reason why anyone cannot overcome obstacles and challenges if they just set their mind to living their dreams, achieving their goals, and breaking down those barriers and stereotypes.
All right, Bryce, what an honor to have you on the show. I can't wait to get this show out. Can't thank you enough, man. And I will be definitely in touch. We'll be talking to you soon, because we are going to do the best we can to help promote the Beautiful Lives Project and what you're doing. So again, God bless you, and thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you so much, Pete. You run a great show, and thank you for having me on.
All right, that's Bryce Weiler, blind sports broadcaster. I'm going to repeat that again, blind sports broadcaster, incredible, inspirational, disability consultant for the Baltimore Orioles, and co-founder of the Beautiful Lives Project. Check it out, beautifullives.org. But don't forget, we're going to have everything on the show notes. Special thanks to Bryce. I can't wait. He's from Illinois. He's going to come up to Chicago. I can't wait to get together with him and meet him personally and just talk. We're going to talk baseball, but we're going to talk other things too. And I'm always going to be here for anything he needs. Folks, thanks for joining us. I want to thank our producer, Brian Kroc, with the Lineup Media Group, for putting together a great show. The Lineup Media Group has a lot of great shows, great people. So check out their website at lineupmediagroup.com. And again, special thanks to Bryce. Special thanks to our listeners. You guys and gals are the ones who make this show happen. You heard Bryce, 25th. I know I was on another one where I was 5th website. So I'm trying to get to be number 1. That's the goal. I'm working hard at it. I even asked Bryce for some advice. So I'm going to ask him again because I want to know how I can get better, how I can get the show out. He's got some great insights. So again, thanks to our listeners in the U.S. and around the world and sharing the show. And that's all we ask. It's a free show. Share the show on social media. Just forward it, a couple clicks, get it out there. We're going to make people's lives better, especially when it comes to coaching and in the game of baseball for our young people and also for people around the world. So again, remember, I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. This is the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo. We will see you on the show Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time. Gus Rodriguez, the head umpire, director of umpires for the World Baseball Softball Confederation. We're going to talk Olympics. We're talking about rules. We're talking about managing games with coaches as far as coach-player relationships, coach-umpire relationships. So check us out. We're almost sold out on that show. But again, I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. Have a great Sunday. God bless you all, and hopefully we'll all be on the baseball field very soon.